Hello world, Krista here with Books and Jams, and today I'm going to unhaul some books and let you know which ones I'm letting go of. Unhauling is such a good feeling, right? I keep this paper bag in my library room, and every once in a while I find a book or two that I am just done with, whether I read it and decide that I don't like it and don't want to keep it, or don't think that I'll read it again, or sometimes, as is my problem probably with most of these, I found books at library book sales and realized I already have a copy of that one at home. This happens more often than it should. So let me just go through the bag and let you know what's in here. To be honest, this bag has been building for a couple months, so I have no clue what is at the bottom. I have here Olive Kittredge by Elizabeth Strout. And I know a lot of people really love this book. I found it to be so very sad. Olive was an interesting character, I'll give her that, but when I think of this book, I think of sadness, and that's not something that I really want to dwell on, and I don't think that I will ever reread this book, so I'm going to pass it along to someone who may end up loving it, like many of you probably do. The next book in here was one that was on my most disappointing books of 2017, and that is The Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. I wish that I loved this. I wanted to love this, but I didn't. The next one is one that I haven't yet read, but I did have another copy of it. I just recently got this actually for 50 cents at a library book sale, but I already had one, and it's Jojo Moyes' book, The Girl You Left Behind. Don't know what it's about, but I'm unhauling it because I don't need two copies of the same book. I feel kind of sad about this one because it was sent to me by the author, but I started it in January because I was reading short books. Let me tell you what it is. This is The Tribulations of August Barton by Jennifer LeBlanc, and it is a novella about this boy in college who is trying to find himself, I think is the general gist of it. I got about 30 pages, which for a novella I guess is pretty far. It just was party college life. His grandma played a large part of it, and she was a former prostitute and very proud of that fact. I didn't care for what was going on and don't need to read about college parties and ex-prostitute grandmas. I hope that someone else can really enjoy this because I really appreciate that Jennifer LeBlanc sent it to me. I just do not think that I will ever go back to it. I also read The Grown Up in January, and this is just a really, really short Gillian Flynn book that was sent to me with Book of the Month Club last year with one of the boxes. It was a surprise add-on, and this is a very interesting book. Again, the content was not something that I would ever want to read again, so I am unhauling it. Same goes for Bridget Jones' Diary by Helen Fielding. I thought the movie was fun, but the book, I just got so annoyed with Bridget in reading this book. I typically like diary format stories, but not this one. And that cover needs to get off my shelf. And I also really like Jane Austen inspired books, which this is, but no. One more January read is The House on Mango Street. And I thought this was good, but not the book for me. This one is about a young Latina girl growing up in a neighborhood of Chicago. Each chapter is a very, very short vignette little story. I've heard from some of you that you use this in teaching middle school in areas where there is a big Latin American population, and they really appreciate it and enjoy it. I think that's great, and so I would love to pass this on and hopefully get it in the hands of someone else who can relate to it a lot more than I can. Another double is The Love Song of Miss Queenie Hennessy by Rachel Joyce. This is a companion novel to The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, which I also own. Haven't read either one yet, but I don't need two copies of this one. Another double copy that I have is Wild by Cheryl Strayed. I have a feeling this is going to be a super, super slow book for me about a woman who goes to find herself along the Pacific Coast Trail, Pacific Northwest Trail, Pacific Coast Trail, PCT. Pacific Coast Trail. I feel like memoirs and I don't always get along, so I'm not sure I'll ever read the other copy that I have, but I certainly don't need two copies to not read. The next book that I see here is Tana French's In the Woods. I had mixed feelings about unhauling this, but I heard enough people who I love and respect on BookTube who don't like this series, and it's a massive series. Not massive, but I think it's more than 4 or 5 books. So I just don't want to get involved with a series that I'm not going to love anyway. So I think I got this from a library book sale, and it is going back to be resold in a secondhand store. A couple of years ago, someone gave me these 2 bind-ups of Christmas stories. This one has A Thrill of Hope and Heavenly Peace by Patty Berg, and this one has The Sounding Joy and Love's Pure Light by Sunny Jeffers and Cami Tang. I really enjoyed both of these and the short stories that were in there for Christmas, but I read them a couple years ago, and I don't think that I will ever reread them. So I'm gonna pass them along and let someone else get some joy out of them. Another Christmas book that I'm unhauling is a mystery by Mary Higgins Clark called Deck the Halls. Oh, and Carol Higgins Clark, both of them. I went through a phase in high school where I read a ton of Mary Higgins Clark books. So this was a lot of fun to read last year, but it's one of those mysteries where you know who did it right from the beginning, and so as you read, you're trying to figure out how everybody else figures out who did it and how they rescue the person. Those are not my favorite types of mysteries, and I do not think that I will ever reread this. I have a stack here of Christian nonfiction. Some of these I have had on my shelves for probably 2 decades, and I still haven't looked at them. I still have tons more on my shelf that just appeal to me more, and so these ones just need to go. So we are going to get rid of them. Here's what they are, and I haven't read any of these, so I'm not going to talk much about them. I'm just going to quickly show you what they are. I have True Community by Jerry Bridges, Simplify Your Spiritual Life by Donald Whitney, Touching Heaven by Prayer by N.I. Solof Ostakov, Keep a Quiet Heart by Elizabeth Elliot, Falling in Love with Jesus by Dee Breston and Kathy Tricoli, The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. I do have another copy of this one. Come Thirsty by Max Lucado, How to Get a Date Worth Keeping by Dr. Henry Cloud, which I've read and it didn't work. I didn't do all the steps that he said, but I just thought it was very interesting. I have a YA here that I picked up at, again, probably a library book sale that I just don't think I'll ever read, and that is The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. If I get an urge to read this, I will go pick it up from the library. Sold by Patricia McCormick. This book follows a young girl who is sold by her parents to work in another country, but that work ends up being of a sexual nature. So it just talks and highlights the huge problem of sexual slavery all over the world, but in particular India and Nepal is where this one takes place. It was very harrowing and hard to read. I do not think that I will read it again, but I would love for other people to read this book, so I am unhauling it. I have just a couple more doubles here. Philippa Gregory, The Queen's Fool. I got this one twice, and I already have one. I now have a list on my phone of all the Philippa Gregory books I already own so that I don't keep doing this. It happens more often than it should. And the final one is also a double, and that is The Secrets of Mary Bower by Lois Levine. This is about a slave girl from Richmond, Virginia, where I live, and she ends up traveling up north for the family that she works for and becoming a spy. Sounds like it's going to be very good, but I can't read it twice. Well, I can't read it in 2 different copies. I don't need to have 2 copies of it. I think that's about 27 books that I'm unhauling. That is fantastic. I'm so excited to clear off some shelf space. The store that I would normally bring these to has closed, which breaks my heart. But there is another bookstore in the area that does take in books and gives you cash or store credit. The first time I brought books there, they didn't give me a very good deal and they didn't take everything. So I'm gonna try again and hopefully have a bit better luck this time around. We shall see. But those are the 27 books that I am unhauling from my shelves. It feels good. Whew. A weight has been lifted. How do you feel about unhauling books? Do you keep every book that you read, or are you willing to pass it along? I love chatting down in the comments. Give this video a big thumbs up if you're a fan of unhauling. Subscribe if you haven't already. Why haven't you? I'll be talking to you in another video very soon. Bye!